Hello everyone, how are you? Today I will be discussing chapter 6 for macroeconomic theory 1016, and I hope that you are well and ready to start the semester. Thank you very much for taking your time to watch my lecture, and I'm going to start now. So my name is Ezekiel, and we were supposed to meet. Unfortunately, we couldn't meet because of the coronavirus outbreak, and I'm sorry about that. Okay, so I am going to explain to you the few things you're expected to know before we in this chapter, and then we can continue and see what you're supposed to learn. So the learning outcome by the end of this chapter, you should be able to recognize the legal form in which businesses are owned and run. Describe revenue, costs, profit, and cash flow of the firm. Analyze account for flows and for stocks, and then you need to be able to recognize and account definitions of the cost. So you also need to understand whether a firm chooses output to maximize, how the firm chooses output to maximize profit. You also need to be able to describe how these choices reflect marginal costs and marginal revenue. So let us start. Here we will strive to understand how do firms decide how much to produce and offer for sales. So how does a firm like maybe Pick n Pay decide how much to produce and how much to sell? We will also establish whether a single theory of supply can describe the behavior of different producers versus small firms. Okay, for each output level, a firm needs to calculate what it costs to make that output and how much revenue is earned by selling it. So production costs often depend on the technology. So surely the firm then is constrained by things like technology and whether it is operating in the long run or short run, and things like fixed costs. So in the short run, you face things like fixed costs and variable costs. In the long run, fixed costs actually become very small and nearly negligible. So we don't actually consider it. So those are things which limit which constrain the production of a firm. Sales depend on the demand curve faced by a firm. So surely we all know that the more is demanded, and then firms are trying to meet it by supply. Demand and supply clear the market. There's a price which do clear the market. So previously, in the previous chapter, hopefully, we learned that demand curve determines the price for which any output quantity can be sold, and thus the revenue the firm earned. So demand and supply, I'm very sure that Daniela will have discussed briefly in chapter 3, and you can see the slide on Sakai on that. So the key assumption in theory of supply is that all firms are rational and they will strive to make as much profit as possible, i.e. they are profit maximizers. So we assume that these firms are rational and their objective is to maximize profit. Remember, in the utility theory, you learn that the objective of the firm, the objective of the consumer was to maximize what? Utility, and it was limited by budget constraint. In the supply side, on the firm side, we look on the firms is trying to maximize profit, and they're limited by the cost. So those are two things which look similar, or literally on the demand side, there is a household which is trying to maximize utility, and they're limited by budget constraint. On the supply side, there is a firm trying to maximize profit, and they're limited by cost. So we discussed this here. So let us see how do firms actually, what are the different type of firms, what are the different type of businesses which exist out there. So we have a sole trader. Remember the guy who sold maquinya down the street? He's a sole trader, right? Guy who sells maquinyas or shkopas, sole trader. What does he do? So he gets the revenue of the business and is responsible for any loss it makes. So surely the guy who's selling a small tax shop, he get all the revenues and he incur losses if he can't sell. If he cannot bear these losses, he becomes personally bankrupt. So that's what happened. Now we are under coronavirus issue is actually making a lot of sole traders go out of business. That's why in countries like US, they have introduced support. That's why President Ramaphosa was asking people to actually to contribute into this relief fund to be able to rescue small businesses. Right. Then there is another type of a business we call a partnership. You know, when you and your chomi decide that now is the time to start a business. So you come together and you agree that we are going to start a business of selling books. For example, across campus, you can observe that people are people selling second-hand books. It's called a partnership. So they formulate a partnership. By the way, it must be legal. It must be registered, right? So partnerships usually have unlimited liability. Sure, just like sole traders, partners are personally liable for the firm losses. So when it goes south, you both, all partners suffer. Unlike a partnership though, there is a company like Bidvets, a company like Woolworths, a company like Checkers, a company like Absa Bank and stuff. So those are companies, right? So unlike a partnership, a company has a legal existence distinct from that of its owner. So ownership is divided among shareholders. So surely Absa is owned by shareholders. So is Pick n Pay. So is Bidvets. Bidvets company, not Bidvets. Even the football team as well is some form of a small company and is owned by shareholders, right? Ownership is divided among shareholders, right? So shareholders earn return in two ways. Firstly, through the dividend payout. So if you own stock of a company, we consider you a shareholder, and you get return in two ways. One, there's a thing called capital gain. If you bought shares of, for example, Pick n Pay at R2 per share, and Pick n Pay become a very successful business, the shares price goes up, which means that's called capital gain. Another thing is when Pick n Pay make profit, it actually pay its liability and then retain some money to be able to be operational. And then the rest will be distributed among shareholders. And that distribution is called a dividend. And you get a dividend if you're the owner. So when you hear there's a dividend payout, that's what is happening, i.e. there is an excess profit which is going to be distributed. Sometimes it may not happen like that. Company might actually incur losses. So a company, if it's run terribly bad, it could become a disaster and you lose all your money for investing in that company. So this is not an investment lesson, but I just wanted for you to understand that. Shareholders earn a return in two ways, first through dividend payout and capital gain or losses. Shareholders of the company have limited liability. The most likely they can lose is the money they've spent buying shares. So that's all you have, right? So a firm account. So a firm report two forms of accounts. One is a stock and one is in the form of for flows. Stocks are measured at a given point in time. Flows are corresponding measure during a period of time. So revenue is what the firm earned from selling goods in a given period. So that then revenue is flows, right? Cost is the expense incurred in the production period, and profit is revenue minus cost. So we all know this. If you ever run a business, profit is nothing else but your revenue minus your cost. Note that from an economic point of view, the right definition of revenue and cost relate to the activity during the year, whether or not payment have yet been made. In case of capital and depreciation, note that here we use capital to denote goods entirely used up in the production process during the period. So depreciation then make economic profit and cash flows differ. When a capital good is first brought, there is a larger cash outflow, much larger than the depreciation cost of using the good in the first year. So understand those things. Okay, so few definition, we need to understand some definition. When you have reading news article, always trying to understand, okay, so what are the main thing here? How important are these things? Does it make sense for me to understand this? Do this actually, what are the important guests in the story? So here we have few definition I want you to understand before we move forward. So a firm cash flow is the net amount of money actually received during a year, right? So you know what they say, cash is king. If you don't have cash, it's a problem, right? Physical capital is the machinery, equipment, and the building used in production. So that's what we call a physical capital, right? Depreciation is the loss in value of a capital good during a period. You know those pairs of shoes you bought after 2 months, maybe the worthy of them is no longer the same as when you bought them, right? So there's a thing called depreciation. Yes. Okay? No? Yeah. things do depreciate. Investors are good, inventories are good held in stock by the firm for the future sales. So yes, every business have inventories. A firm net worth is the asset it owns less the liabilities owes. So when a firm makes profit after tax, it pays out dividend to shareholders and retain the balance as retaining earnings. Earnings are part of the after-tax profit a firm can reinvest into the company. Firm then can also use their retained earnings to pay out their liabilities or purchases their shares. So there's a share buyback if the company just have too much money, so they could buy their shares back. Opportunity cost and accounting profit. So we have opportunity cost. So I'm sure that since all through the first block or the first semester, you had something called opportunity cost. And opportunity cost was nothing special, but the best alternative for gone, i.e. what could you have done instead of what you are doing now? That's your opportunity cost you are incurring, right? So balance sheet and income statement provide a snapshot on how the company is doing. So if you're ever looking or analyzing a company, you need to be able to look at the balance sheet and the income statement and see, oh, okay, how is this company making enough income? What is their liabilities? What is their asset? And decide, okay, this is a good company, it's performing well, it's performing bad. But on economic terms, we kind of want to understand what are the ramifications of this? Why are this important? Well, there is a typo here. I will correct it. The text colored account only care about. So we know that the economists, recall that the economist view and the accountant views are in conflict. First, the accountant only cares about the receipt and the payment of the company, while economists care about how the revenue and cost affect the supply decision. Economists view the cost of using resources not as the payment actually made, but as the opportunity cost. So we as economists, we care about the opportunity cost. What else could you have done with your resource? We're not only looking on the payment and receipt, we kind of want to understand the opportunity costs for gone. So firms owners need to take into account the cost of their labor time in the firm, and the opportunity cost of capital money put up to start the business. Accounting costs ignore the use of owned as opposed to borrowed capital. So you need to see table 6.1 in the prescribed textbook and understand the cost of personal capital. Note that opportunity cost is the best alternative for gone. If individuals uses his personal capital to finance businesses, he incurs opportunity cost because he could have otherwise deposited the money in the bank and earn interest. So the opportunity cost will be the interest it could earn in the bank times the amount invested. If after deducting this cost and the true cost of your time, the business still make a profit, we call this a supernormal profit, right? So I see that, so I will rectify that as well. Firm choose how much to produce to maximize profit, but some experts question this assumption. So some might differ incentive as we see it below. So, okay, so this is a wonderful equation which you need to remember that profit, which is a function of quantity, is your total revenue, which is a function of quantity as well, minus total cost, which is a function of quantity as well. Okay, right. Then ownership and control. So the separation of ownership and control in companies lead to what economists call principal agent problem. So principal agent problem is nothing else but the fact that because it's very hard to monitor the operation of a manager, there will be an issue where the interest of the manager and the interest of the shareholders are misaligned, i.e. the agent have his own incentive and the principal have his own incentive. So the misalignment of incentive between agent, i.e. the managers or directors, versus principals, the owners, results in something called a principal agent problem. So the agents sometimes are tempted to act on their own interests rather than those of their principal. Simply put, principal or owners may delegate decision to an agent. So if it is costly for a principal to monitor the agent has inside information about his own performance causing the principal agent problem. So this is a very popular concept in insurance, that people get insurance when they know they have lung cancer and then they die 2 weeks later, and then they can claim from that. Now, how does the insurance company try to mitigate that? So they will have to come up with a way of aligning, of monitoring that risk. Now, on a business side of things, how do we make sure that the manager you have hired to run the tax shop actually act on your best interest? So often, the easiest way to do that is to give a portion of ownership to the manager who runs the tax shop. Because if he owns it, if he's a part of the ownership as well, then he cannot mess it up, right? Another way is to actually threaten a takeover. So companies, sometimes when they share, or investors, sometimes when they observe that some company is not run properly, what they do is they threaten to buy shares, enough shares, and kick out the management and change the management, right? So that's what we call a green mail strategy of trying to take a business, right? So another way is that if a company is very profitable and undervalued, green mail might conspire over time. So you can see concepts, the concept box 6.2 in your book. It explains this green mail concept broadly. Okay, the firm supply decision. So how does a firm decide what to supply? So a firm produces goods and services that are sold in the market. But how do they decide this? Cost and demand condition jointly determine the output choice of a profit maximizing firm. Remember, if you are maximizing profit, you are by implication minimizing cost. And this is a kind of a duality aspect, but you need to understand this, right? So, i.e., if you maximize one, you should be minimizing that. Okay, now we have some tables here. We have output, and then we have total cost, we have price, total revenue, and profit. So if you take your total cost, 1 times this is 21. So this is your price. So price times quantity to get your total revenue. And then if you minus your total revenue from your cost, it's 21 minus 25, you get a minus 4. Here, if you take 2 times this is 40 minus 36, you get a 4. And likewise, if you take 3 times 19, that is 57 minus, so if you take 57 minus 44, you get 13. So you see here, you're making a loss and you become profitable, and then profitable. But what happened is, you see, is it was increasing up to quantity 6. And then what happened? It started decreasing. So if you plot your total revenue, it will be a semi-cycle up. It's concave, I think. Yes, concave total revenue curve. And you see that your profit actually go until it reach maximum and then it decreases, right? Later, we'll see how to determine the optimal quantity to maximize profit. So we have marginal cost and marginal revenue, and marginal cost is the rise in total cost when output rises by 1 unit, while marginal revenue is nothing else but the rise in total revenue when output rises by 1 unit. Those are like margins. When you hear margin, it's something, it's a rate. Remember when you learn speed in school? Speed is what? Distance over time. Okay? I.e., margin is a change in total cost of a change in quantity. So that's what you're talking about, marginal cost. For marginal revenue, it's a change in your total revenue of a change in your quantity. And that's all it is. And if you are given a function of cost, you differentiate with respect to quantity and you get marginal cost. If you are given a function of revenue, you differentiate it with respect to quantity to get marginal revenue, right? Okay, so the marginal cost function can be found by taking the derivative of the total cost. So I've already explained this, and you are given it here. So marginal revenue is nothing else. Differentiate total cost with respect to quantity, or if you are doing discrete stuff, it's a change in total cost of a change in that. Similarly, this is true for marginal revenue. Total and marginal cost. So total and marginal cost. So we have total cost. So this is just a change in it. All right. Sure. So you see that initially it's fall, and then start increasing, right? Price and total revenue and marginal revenue. Similarly, we can find our total revenue, which is multiple of price and quantity to get that, and then we find the change to get our marginal revenue. Okay, so calculus can be such a useful tool. Recall that by taking first derivative, we only find out critical values of the function, but we are not sure whether those values minimize or maximize cost. Right, it's supposed to be profit. Second derivative sign is a necessary and sufficient condition to check whether the profit is maximized. If profit is maximized, the second derivative of the profit function must be less than 0. So if you take the first derivative, you take like this, you write your profit function, i.e. your profit function which we had previously here. You differentiate this profit function with respect to Q and then equate equal to 0 and solve for Q. And then how do you know that that quantity you have solved actually maximizes profit? Probably not, you don't know. So the way to go about that is to differentiate that function again. If you differentiate it again, you must make sure that the quantity you got here, when you substitute in the second derivative part, it should be negative, right? We will see this in the examples I have put at the end of this the slides. So we have marginal revenue, marginal cost, and output decision. So a profit maximizing firm should expand output so long as marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, but stop expanding as soon as marginal cost is less than marginal revenue. So I have already showed here so here this is greater than that, you raise again greater, again greater, again greater, again greater, and here it's 1, so it's still raised, and then here you start lowering them. Marginal cost and marginal revenue curve. So you see that when marginal condition and output decision. So when marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, you rise. Marginal revenue less than marginal cost, you cut. When they're equal, you stay. If profit is positive. If profit is positive, makes this output. If input prices changes, i.e. marginal cost change, i.e. if input prices rises, marginal costs shift up and profit maximizing output will fall and hold all else constant. Similarly, if demand shifts up, the marginal revenue must also shift up and profit maximizing output will also increase. Okay, so as I promised, I'll put some examples at the end of the notes, so just for clarity. So a firm, for example, faces the following linear demand. So you are given a demand function for a firm. The firm have a marginal cost given by this. And then you are asked to find the expression for the firm marginal revenue. Plot the marginal revenue, marginal cost curve on the graph. What is the amount of output that the firm should produce? At what price is the output sold? So so we know what is our demand curve. We know what's marginal cost. So we going to use the demand curve to determine our revenue. Remember, revenue is total. It's a price times quantity. So for simplicity purposes, I'm going to convert this demand curve to rewrite it in terms of price. So I can just multiply with quantity and move on from there. So I took my demand curve. I rewrite it in terms of price, where I get P is equal to 60 minus 2Q. And then I recall that total revenue is nothing else but its price times quantity. Then you take that and you multiply, you get 60Q and thus. Then I differentiate my total revenue to get my marginal revenue, and I get 60 minus 4Q. Now I know that profit maximization, a firm should maximize where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. To get price at which the firm should sell its output, you equate marginal revenue is equal. Now you know what is marginal revenue. We just calculated it here. And we are given marginal cost to be 8. So if you do that, I hope this is correct. So 52 divided by 4, you should get that. Then if you take, now that you know what's the quantity which the firm is selling, what will it be the price? Now remember, you rewrote the equation for price as this. So you just substitute the quantity of Q to get that to be 34. Now we move on to our graph. We know that we are already given that the demand curve, our demand curve is given by P is equal to 60 minus 2Q. So you first plot that when price is equal to 0, quantity will be, when quantity equals 0, price is equal to 60. And when price is equal to 0, quantity is 30. Similarly, I will plot my marginal revenue curve, which is given by this. So this is my marginal revenue curve. It means that when quantity is zero, price is 60, marginal revenue is 60. So it's, see that it actually share the same, so it's still there. But when marginal revenue is 0, then quantity is 15. Similarly, I was given that marginal revenue is nothing else but it's 8. So that's a straight line. It's just a linear going from 8. So that is it. That's it, right? And then I know that the firm is producing the quantity of 13. So it's producing the quantity of 13 and charging the price of 34. So that's what they wanted us to do. On the second question, is a firm function is given by total revenue is equal to 10Q, and it is cost function is given by this. So this 150 is your fixed cost, and this 2Q square is your variable cost. Find the marginal revenue and marginal cost for the firm, and define the firm profit maximizing output. Now this quantity satisfies the first and the second order condition for maximum. So recall that marginal revenue is equal to that. So if we differentiate that, if we differentiate this to get our marginal revenue, we get is 10. Marginal cost is equal to 4Q. If you differentiate this in terms of Q, you get 4Q. Then you equate them to solve, and you get Q is 2.4. Is the profit maximizing output according to first order condition. Now to confirm this, we need to make sure that the second order condition is satisfied. So if you do the second order condition, i.e. the derivative of your total revenue, remember our total revenue when we differentiated, we got it what? Our total revenue when we differentiated, we got it 10. So if you differentiate 10, again is a 0. So it's 0. And if you differentiate this again, it's a 4. So 0 minus 4 is less than 0. That satisfies the profit maximizing condition. Thank you very much for reading the slide and watching the video. If you found any typos, please do let me know. For now, reading chapter 6 is in the book, and practice question at the end of the chapter. I will be uploading a few more extra questions weekly on the quizzes for you to attempt according to the chapters. And then we will meet again to discuss how you are supposed to have gone about this question. Those one will be uploaded on Sakai, similarly with our slides here. So keep well and stay safe and keep working hard. Thank you very much.